record. I want to thank all my panelists for being here today. I'm so excited to ask each and every one of you all these questions that have come into us from undergrads as well as graduate students. To all of you who are here, please, if there's any students in the audience, I want you to feel free to add your questions to the chat. And in a few minutes or towards the end, we will certainly get to your questions. So I'm going to get started. And these are all questions that came in from undergrads and grad students. So the first, before I even get started, I want to welcome each and every one of the alums back tonight. We certainly appreciate your time. So we're going to get started by asking each and every one of you to introduce yourselves. Who wants to get started?
I'll go
There's some
first.
volunteers. Oh,
Oh.
okay. Go ahead, Jen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie Marrow. I am a Rutgers alum. I graduated with my bachelor's in HR in 2018. And last May, I graduated with my master's in HR as well. So I currently work for BetMGM. I started as a talent acquisition specialist, and now I am team lead of talent acquisition, focusing on overall early talent, campus, and events. And excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Joe.
I have to admit, I'm not used to Zoom. I think my company uses WebEx, so I'm here struggling a little bit. But so nice to meet everyone. My name is Joe Chen. I am a master's student graduate. I think I had this question the other week, and I can't remember, but I think I graduated back in December of 2016. So I think that should be my date. Could be 2017 of spring, but it could be one of those two. But generally, I like to say I am a master's student at Rutgers. So I graduated then. I am an HR partner at IBM, currently serving and helping all of our first-line managers within the United States. So that is me.
Alyssa, do you want to go next?
Of course. Hi, everybody. My name's Alyssa Verhoef. I am a talent acquisition partner at Kantar, which is a market research consumer insights company. I graduated from Rutgers in 2014. Yes, in the spring. I can't believe it's almost been 9 years. And I graduated with a degree in journalism and media studies. And I kind of fell into the HR realm when I was searching for jobs. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. Alex?
Hey everyone, my name's Alex. I'm actually a 2019 graduate, so relatively recent. I actually double majored in HR and health administration, so I wanted to leverage that and my background education and find a career where I could, apply my strengths and my interests. So I currently work as a talent acquisition specialist with MGH Life Sciences, a healthcare communications company.
Wonderful. So we'll jump right into some more questions. What was the interview like when you got hired by your companies? And what were some of the students are really curious to find out? What were some of the skills that they had required? Anybody wants to take that?
I'll take it.
Okay.
So my first interview when I graduated was at a recruitment agency. So I was 21 years old. I was terrified. So I know a lot of folks here are masters. It's a mix between masters and undergrad.
Yes.
Okay. So some of you master folks are probably a little more experienced with interviewing, but I think the number one thing when it comes to any role that falls under HR, whether it's employee relations, HR generalists, even recruiters, be confident. I think that's the number one thing. That's what got me hired at the agency. I was the first person that was hired as a junior candidate, and they took quote unquote a risk on me that they said. But I just think overall, just in HR, you really need those people skills because you're not only dealing with your coworkers daily, you're always dealing with people internally. And when it comes to talent acquisition, you really have to be that personable, get people to like you because you are representing a company. So I think if nerves really do start showing, they may think that you get overwhelmed. HR isn't, it's some people think HR is all fluff and whatnot, but it's not. So I think confidence is the number one key. And if you're not so confident and you're nervous, I always say fake it till you make it.
Right. Thank you so much. Anybody else wants to chime in?
I think I can go next, and I think the fake it till you make it advice is probably one of the best things I could ever give to any new person going into the workforce. But I think my journey is a little bit different. So for me, I got my role at IBM actually through the internship through IBM. So actually, what happened was I went to the career fair that SMLR had, and I met one of the IBMers that were recruiting for at Rutgers, and got to talk to them, got to really kind of show myself, right, giving that elevator pitch of who I am and what I can provide as value to the company. And I think that kind of goes into why I got into the interview next stage with an executive at IBM, and how and why I got so involved, right? I think it's one of those things where even as an intern, you're really showing yourself off as, hey, what kind of value do I bring to the company? And as an HR person, it's hard to show that value, right? And I think a big thing that I did in my interview with IBM, I think more or less the reason why any kind of interview that you go into is really understanding the business, understanding the numbers, understanding what is profitable, what makes the company profitable, talking about those different types of business segments and what is driving the business to be successful. I brought that a lot to my interview at IBM, and after the internship into that interview, that gave me my full-time career where, hey, I focused on what was important to the company, what kind of value I bring to the table to make sure that, hey, we can reach those goals, not just for myself, but for the company as well. So those are some nice fun things that I did during the internship stage. And I would strongly suggest for all the undergrads and graduate students to go to the career fairs, get as much in person. Now, we have a lot of TA people here. Go in person. That's a very good way of creating an impact to that individual that might say, you know what, Joe, or whoever, John Smith might be a good person to go a little bit further with an interview.
And we'll remember you. If you stand out, I will 100% say we may speak to 200 people that day. We will remember you. There'll be stars on your resume, even if you're not sure how it went. Impressions like that, entry level is really competitive. We won't forget.
Okay, anyone else before we move on?
Yeah, I can go next. I found my kind of footing at my current organization, BetMGM, through someone I had worked with at a previous organization. So staying connected and meeting new people is vital in your career, even if it's through someone in college at a previous organization. I had reached out to we're really good friends now in terms of my experiences. And at the time, the organization didn't have something I was interested in, but that goes to say, don't give up in terms of what you're looking for, because it ultimately ended up working out in terms of the position I ultimately wanted. And in terms of the interview process itself, I would say being prepared is super vital, making sure that ahead of the interview, you're researching the organization, kind of giving yourself a little bit pep talk, having those mock interviews, maybe with yourself or someone that you feel comfortable around, just preparing to know situational questions, talking about yourself. And overall, that communication is key, and keeping it light and fun is also important as well. So they know that you are a people person, know how to communicate at the end of the day.
Okay, so I'm going to jump to another question that came in. It says, with the ever-changing workforce, what do you feel is the most important skill employers are looking for in new hires? And how do you see that show up on the job? Joe, did you want to take that?
Yep, I think I can jump in for this one. So I think a very important thing for any kind of new hire, right? Anyone that goes into the workforce, because let's be honest here, you have no experience. And if you have any experience, it's probably 1 or 2 years of internships, right? And I think the important thing to kind of show off, though, is that you are able to produce, you're able to do things, you're able to show that, hey, I can take a task from step A to step B to step C, all the way to step C, whatever it would be. And I think that should show within a resume, and it should show within any kind of context. I was going to say, interviews, right? How to get better interviews. I always kind of bring up the STAR method. I'm not sure if you're all kind of familiar, but it's something worth to look at on bringing that situation, task, action, and what that result was. And I think if you can do that in even whatever kind of setting you have, a work setting or volunteering setting, whatever it would be, it shows that you have the ability to problem solve. And I think that is one of the biggest things that for early professionals, what you're looking for. how can you problem solve? Are you good at doing that? Or do you crack under pressure, right? Whatever it is. So that's the advice I would give to the new hires, is making sure that you're putting in these kind of things that give context to what you are good at and how you can do better at it.
Okay, anyone else?
I could continue on. I think that one of the really important skills, especially kind of for new hires, is something that we've been looking at in the recent years of recruitment, is really that attitude. When we kind of think about an overall attitude, it's something that can be taught, right? When you think about personality, that's really much harder to change when you think of especially more experienced employees. So for our entry level employees, I think that it's reasonable to kind of assume that this is even more true, right? Being able to hire new employees because they're flexible, they have that passion, they will stick up and be held accountable, especially in fast-paced working environments, from what I've seen at BetMGM in itself. So it's really essential to kind of be able to learn from scratch, have those communication skills, be that critical thinker. And when you think about hiring for attitude, I think people can combat it a little bit, where you really don't want to hire someone just because you like them, but it's important to think about those skills too, right? You're wanting to hire someone that can contribute and do good work for your organization, but you also want them to back it up with a positive demeanor that'll impact the culture, being able to have those skills and conduct that overall satisfactory work. So in the end of the day, not saying that aptitude is not important, but both attitude and aptitude is going to be something that's going to be taken in consideration for sure, especially with the newer hires within an organization and coming out of school.
Thank you so much. Alex, can you chime in by expanding a little bit, maybe give us a different perspective where maybe from a cultural perspective is concerned, as to how we could build maybe a more high performing environment in terms of making sure that our new hires are skilled?
Sure,
Any perspective on that?
absolutely. So in regard to, having an inclusive and high performing, culture and, a more diverse and multi-generational workforce, organizations are becoming more aware and realize the importance and value of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. But it is still, sort of a work in progress. With Gen Z now entering the workforce, it's, extremely critical and crucial that HR can sort of adapt to fulfill their needs without alienating others. So realizing that you may have to take different approaches with different associates, to try to meet as many needs that you can. So it is a delicate balance that you're, sort of going to need to develop in order to succeed with building, a high, inclusive, and performing culture. So definitely a critical soft skill in the workplace, sort of for this transition, is empathy. Sort of, helping to bridge the gap in understanding and helping to improve communication, collaboration by helping you understand different perspectives and experiences, so you can better adapt your responses appropriately. Because you're not always going to be able to make everyone happy, but if you can understand, where the problems lie, you're better able to provide a solution that can make, the majority happy. And also, just being able to train managers up on how to effectively, lead and develop, the multi-generational workforce, because they're also not going to, different associates aren't going to take feedback the same, or they may need more or less feedback. So it's important that, everyone is sort of trained up on the differences and how to approach things. And, sometimes you do need to tread lightly on that.
Thank you so much. This is such great nuggets. So you talked a little bit about training just now, Alex. So I'm going to throw this back out to the panelists. What are some resources that you would recommend to our students that they could utilize to develop these skills that are needed? What are some resources out there?
I'm sure everybody in the HR world has heard about like the PHR exam and the SHRM exam, but I have spoken to many of my colleagues who do talk about how beneficial it is. A couple of my colleagues who are in talent acquisition, even though we're not directly doing HR and whatnot, they are gaining a lot of value from it. I'm personally not doing it right now, but in the future I would like to, so I can partner with HRBPs easier. But I know that's probably something you've told a lot, but it could definitely set you out from the crowd. And some roles in general, they do really look for that extra because there is a lot of studying to it, but there's a lot of knowledge that comes from the studying. So that's something I would absolutely suggest if most of my friends who are in HR do have those exams, and a lot of roles do require it.
I heard the SHRM exam isn't the easiest, but more power to them. But I agree in terms of, I think that it's important to not only grow yourself professionally, but personally to maximize your potential, right? Being able to take those online courses, go back to school, get your certifications to gain new skills, but you could also kind of gain skills definitely from on-site experience, which is a little bit different, of course, when you're still in school, but you could think of it in the lens of maybe connecting with a professor or like group projects overall, maybe asking for feedback, whether it be positive or that constructive criticism can bring a lot to you. Observing others, whether it is maybe a peer at your internship or your someone that you directly report into, seeing how they respond to situations and take them as you learning experiences for yourself. And then I would say overall kind of networking, whether it's maybe attending a conference, a career fair in this case, finding a mentor. There is definitely a number of different ways to learn new skills, whether you have a full-time job or you're in school, because in the end, it ultimately does pay off when you want to reach your personal or professional goals.
Wonderful. Anybody else wants to chime in terms of how do we prepare ourselves better for all these new skills and these future to compete with the futuristic world that we're now entering into?
I would say the last one to, I think just having daily readings, right? I think it's kind of always kind of say stereotyping it, but reading things like the Wall Street Journal, right? Keeping ideas what the business is doing, what the businesses outside of your own business are doing. It's very important just because you get to understand and see the trends on where the world is going. It's important, and I think I would definitely suggest do that. I think the second one is kind of mention the networking and all of that, but I would kind of extend it into try to get yourself into these kind of law conferences. As HR people, I like to say that we're lawyers without necessarily the law degree. And it's very helpful to go inside, knowing a lot of kind of legal people in that sense to help you out. So I would say if you can get yourself into even this kind of legal areas to help yourself out, to understand some more labor issues that are happening, and then make sure that you're kind of keeping on to day-to-day things that are happening throughout the business world.
And to sort of, oh, sorry, to sort of chime in on. Okay,
Alex,
so sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, to sort of chime in on what Jill said, with the current environment, it is incredibly important to stay proactive and position yourself strategically, right? Looking out for certain industry trends, paying attention to organizations that maybe on the decline or doing mass layoffs, because the first people to go generally are entry-level associates or HR. And certain skill sets that I definitely recommend sort of learning more about, especially with the advent of automation. Companies are looking for graduates who can do more sophisticated work much more quickly. So organizations have sort of shifted their decision making to being much more data driven. So like a skill that is high in demand is knowing how to analyze and manage data and statistics. Specifically in HR, we may look for trends with attention to hiring practices, turnover, compliance, or even recruitment. So I definitely recommend brushing up on HR analytics, as well as getting experience working with HRIS systems, HCMs, or applicant tracking systems. So softwares like Workday, ADP, Oracle, because realistically in any interview for an HR role, you're going to be asked if you've had prior experience working with one of these systems and platforms. And to sort of go off on what Alyssa said, definitely the SHRM CPA is definitely something that is worth looking further into, it does show that you're continuing to, build on your experience as an HR professional, and even Lean Six Sigma, just allowing you to be more productive, and eliminating different waste in terms of whether that's time or resources.
That was a good one. I really like that. And definitely with the Lean Six Sigma, definitely the whole project management piece comes into place. It helps you to be more effective at the job. So thank you so much. And we're just so honored that you're here. Another question came in and it says, what are some key selection criteria that you follow to hire an undergraduate or a graduate student in your company for a HR/labor relations role? Who wants to take that? What are some key selection criterias?
I think it depends. I mean, there's no specific because so many roles are different. HR has so many different genres, you can say, between like compensation, employee relations, generalist. And it's one of those things though, when you are interviewing, be prepared. So example, if there's compensation multiple times in the job description, brush up on it a little bit. If you don't have work experience or internship experience with it, talk about your classwork. That's something I've talked to plenty of candidates before that have talked about their classwork and mock work they've done. Or you could be like, I did a whole compensation analyst on Nestle or something, people I've heard. So be prepared. I think a lot of people don't value their classwork as much as they should, especially when it comes to master's students. So that's some type of advice. Be prepared, really read the job description, because you want to be, my biggest pet peeve as a recruiter is if I ask a question and then I hear silence and they're like, well, I'm thinking. I'm like, and then they're like, can you repeat? Like, what do you mean by compensation? I'm like, well, you don't understand it then. So just be prepared, because if it's in the job description multiple times, chances are they will ask about your experience.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. So that brings me to, I want you to keep bringing these gems our way. So I know a lot of students have oftentimes asked the question, knowing what you know now, is there any knowledge or skill that you wish you had taken more seriously when you were in your studies as you transitioned into your early career opportunities? We all want to hear it. Was there any class or
Yeah,
any
I'd say
Yeah,
that
plenty. I have plenty.
yeah, even down to the most not HR related, simple class. Thinking back, the first thing I think back to is like XPOS. Like I had the most difficult time transitioning from high school into writing college papers. And ultimately, after getting through that, you still have to write papers for other courses, right? So, but you're writing papers, doing assignments for other classes, and you don't even want to take the time to proofread it because you're like, oh my God, I just want to be done with this. Like, close the laptop, submit it, and be done. So I think even down to the simple of focusing on like writing courses and like that written communication is super vital, especially from what I learned when I started my career in talent acquisition, being a coordinator with that attention to detail, with the scheduling, the interviews, being able to write properly in emails, that there's no overall typos and stuff in that manner. So being able to reread your emails, having that good communication, not only written, but also kind of verbal communication, knowing how to work and communicate with different personalities. Hiring managers are different than one another. So knowing how to talk to people and overall conveying your ideas. I think that it also relates through your resume and your cover letter, being able to reflect your attention to detail, because I myself can look at a resume and be like, all right, yeah, all right, no, like within seconds. And having it look professional, having it look concise, and making sure that you're not having any of those typos is super important. So I would say an emphasis on communication kind of being a general area of focus I would have liked to keen more in on.
And talking about the resume portion, I think a lot of people don't utilize the Career Center for some reason. I don't know why. I am baffled by it because I remember I was going to it and they helped me redo my whole resume. And it hurts when I do a lot of entry level recruitment when I see a resume that's like not even formatted perfectly. I'm like, sometimes there has been times I've taken it, I'm like, I can't have this person apply to any roles. And I'll honestly fix it for them because like I can't sleep at night thinking about that. But looking back, what I really wish I took more advantage of was more internship experience or even on campus. Rutgers has so many opportunities. They're always looking for help, cheap help and free help. Not in general at Rutgers per se, but people do that. And I feel like I didn't take advantage enough of the opportunities on campus, especially the proximity to New York City. I was originally going to go to school for social work, and then I kind of changed my mind last minute and took some like marketing internship in New York. But I already felt like I was behind the eight ball at that moment. So I didn't really take advantage enough of the Career Center. And I think people really should utilize that because not only are they going to help you with like mock interviews, they're going to help you with resumes. And another thing is don't be shy to do mock interviews. I do that with some of like my friends, like cousins or little siblings, because just to help them and I give them feedback, be like, okay, so you said like 55 times in a matter of 5 minutes, and they had no idea that they did that, and they can practice. So take advantage of who you know. If it's your friend's mom who's an HR director, she'll be happy to do it. It's 20 minutes out of their day, and they would like that you're trying to improve your skill set. So use your network and really practice the interviewing, really, especially for entry level roles, can make it or break it.
Yeah, so Alyssa, that was exactly my point. Like I feel like I didn't take advantage of the vast, networks and resources that is offered at Rutgers. That's one of the key selling points on why I decided to come here. But for some reason, once I was here, I didn't really utilize those resources and those networks to its full potential. I actually worked as an office assistant at uh, the Rutgers HR office. So I see how much work they put in, how much they could sort of contribute to your overall development, like, you know, the resume workshops, the networking events, even like the career fairs that they set up, where there's hundreds of potential employers there that are happy to speak with you and sort of get to know you better, and find a fit for you, in their organization. So definitely, leveraging those resources and those networks that are provided for you here at Rutgers. Um, it's incredible, how you're able to build those connections. And I still keep in touch with most of the people I met at Rutgers, and they're the ones that are able to refer you and bring you into the organization, give you more insight on different career trajectories or overall opportunities in their organizations as well. So
And use your network. Alumni love alumni. The reason why I'm speaking here today, because like I love Rutgers. I'm sure you all feel the same way. Like I love going back to Rutgers for events. If you're looking at a role, for example, let's say you guys had no idea who I was. You were on Kantar's website. They have an entry level HR coordinator role, and I was the person on it. Reach out to me, or even reach out to me, or reach out to anyone at Kantar. Be like, I saw that there was a role open. I'm another fellow Rutgers alumni. If worst case scenario, they don't answer, but chances are, since you are alumni, take that to your advantage.
Yeah, having your LinkedIn and utilizing your LinkedIn and your resume are super important. I know that kind of taking Len Garrison's class, the career management, I'm pretty sure my resume is still in his templates to this day. And LinkedIn is such a huge resource. I've done what Alyssa has said many times in terms of just reaching out to somebody and seeing if they answer, to be like, hey, you establish that connection, whether it's like you went to school together, maybe in the same sorority or fraternity, building that connection to see if someone is willing to help make you overall learn something new about the business, help you get an interview. Networking is vital for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing. Did anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll chime. I think I'll quickly go through some quick things. I think the first
Thank you,
one,
Jen.
you all kind of bring up really good points that I'm thinking about, man, oh, what did I miss out on during my career? But the first one I would like to kind of bring up, and might not necessarily be kind of a personal experience, but an experience that I know a lot of new professionals going into the workforce have an issue with, is that they'll go through college not joining any club, not doing any kind of leadership thing, and then they graduate and go, where's my job? And you kind of look at it and you realize that, well, you know, you missed your opportunity, right? And I think this is really for the undergrads out there. But make sure you're getting involved. And not only are you getting involved, make sure that you are taking the opportunities to show your skill set, right? I think that's something where I find so many undergrads just think that the degree is all you need. And it's not. Let's be honest here, you're competing with thousands of other people that were at top of their class, from people all the way from Penn State to Stanford to Harvard. You're competing with all those people, right? So let's be serious about it. Look at it and say, what can I do to be better? What can I do to show that I'm a better candidate than those people? I just like to be competitive, right? I think coming from it is be competitive, start thinking about those things to get yourself into the terms of those type of schools that I just kind of mentioned. With that being said, a more personal one, and I hope Professor McCune is not on the call, or at least doesn't take offense to this, but I should have honestly taken a little bit more steps to get better with professional development, or not professional, development in general, right? How do I make sure in an HR setting, how do I get our employees perform at a better way, right? I'm losing my words right now because I'm a little scared that Professor McCune will hate me for this, but it's one of those things where I would say, out of the classes here at Rutgers, I wish I paid attention more. I wish I, was involved more, just because it's one of those things where I think every company nowadays is really trying to understand, how do we get more out of our employees? What's the best way to do it? And how do we kind of execute on that? So in an HR setting, I would say that is probably the one skill that I wish I had, but I was better at, honestly.
Thank you so much, Joe. Did anybody else want to chime in? I think everybody got a chance to respond to that question. All right, so with that said, on behalf of the School of Management and Labor Relations, we just want to thank you for being here tonight and for returning to SMLR. So we thank you so much, and our students really, really appreciate all that you do for us. Thank you and have a good evening.